Welcome to Native Calgarian and Mossy for listening. I'm your host, Michelle Robinson, speaking to you in Mohkinstsis in the Blackfoot Confederacy, home of the Niitsitapi, Tsuut'ina Dene, and the Yiharhi Nakota. I talk about history, current news, unheard news, book clubs, with special guests to give local or national issues a voice through an urban Saatu Dene lens. My life's work will be to honor the voices of my ancestors and next generation with humor, love, and truth. Reconciliation is work, not performance. May we honor all Indigenous voices with that courage. Today is December 10th, 2025. Oh my goodness, days left. Welcome to Native Calgarian. If you enjoy listening to Indigenous content by this Saatu Dene woman, my Patreon account is Native Calgarian, where you can pledge and support. Thank you to previous donors for already showing your support. For those who cannot afford to give, I would love to hear from you at nativeyyc@gmail.com, where you can send in your comments or questions. Also, giving a review helps whatever medium you are listening from. I have a YouTube channel that you can go and subscribe or watch from there. Go to nativecalgarian.com for the latest podcasts and pin posts on social media. Always remember to share the things you've learned to your network. Oki, naganago, mekoche chestokomaki, nara daga de gotsnagotine siku saradi. My name is Red Thunder Woman. My married English name is Michelle Robinson, and I use they, them pronouns. My Dene lineage roots me in the land of the Great Bear Lake tribe in Treaty 11 in Delaney. I am a native to Turtle Island, and my Dene nation is uninvited to this area of Clincho Tine Indahe in Saatu Dene, meaning many big dog town, named after the Calgary Stampede. I was born in Calgary or in Blackfoot, Mohkinstsis, as Michelle Elliott, an English name that has afforded me privilege in an English colonial world. Acknowledging proximity to whiteness is important because the darker the skin, the closer to proximity, the more racism a person can or cannot experience in colonial spaces. My late great-grandfather is Milo Bewell from Delaney. His daughter, Alice, is my now late granny. My mother and I are Northern Slavey Dene or Saatu Dene, but my Indian Act imposed status card by the Canadian government says Yellowknives Dene. Through my father, I'm a daughter of the Mayflower and a daughter of the American Revolution. Having a Canadian Indian Act imposed status card is a colonial construct by Canadian policies meant to divide Indigenous peoples' inherent rights. Indigenous Two-Spirit, or the 2S LGBTQ community, and Indigenous women are at the bottom of the Canadian socio-economic ladder because of colonial trauma, imposed poverty, racism, gendered violence, and land theft. I'm not a social worker nor an elder, nor do I speak on behalf of all Indigenous peoples. But I share my journey as a Dene mom, navigating this ableist, colonial, misogynistic, racist world in 2025. Land Back is a movement that could save the planet from climate change created by colonialism, but it would be a part of understanding treaty, part of meaningful reconciliation, honoring global initiatives like the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. As a former geomatics drafter, I'd be happy to teach you more, but you have to go to nativecalgarian.com for more. I think of all of this today, and I hope we honor the many Indigenous lives lost for this British Westminster system named Canada. I hope we all see our role in importance of stopping harm as a citizen, see our roles in reconciliation, and as a treaty partner. And with that, I have my friend that I'm lucky enough to call a friend, but a Blackfoot Society member, scholar, leader, and returning guest, Linda Manyguns, coming to discuss her new book with us. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I'm honored to have you. I know when you had said that you had a book coming, and then I got the updates. I'm so excited to get a copy. And did you want to talk a little bit about what it's called, why it's called that, and what it's about?
Oh, yes. Well, this has been a true journey. This was my thesis when I did my PhD. And of course, life gets in the way. And I have my granddaughter with me for almost 10 years, from an infant in diapers and whatnot. So yeah, things definitely need more attention in life and whatnot. So things have changed again, and I'm kind of moving into I call it semi-retired, but I'm not quite sure what that means because I feel like I'm busier now than I was before.
I've never heard a retired senior ever say anything but exactly the words you just said.
Honestly, it's actually quite wonderful to have the time to
Good.
actually go back to those spots in your life where you needed to complete the work. And oh, I'm sorry, I've got my Blazy here is right in front of me. Of course,
Cats and dogs are welcome because if they weren't, I'd be in big trouble. My Mr. Boss here is very sad I'm not taking him for a WALK right at this moment.
yes. Well, that's what this guy is wanting. He's very needy. He's part Manx, and they're almost like dogs. Like right sit on you and have to be right beside you constantly.
Oh, I
But
love it.
anyway, the book is more than a labor of love. It was it was a job that had to be done, actually.
Yes.
And the reason I completed it wasn't so much that I'm proud of my research, but rather I saw our master's students and our PhD students trying to go through the systems, and there just isn't enough tangible material to help them explain what they're thinking. And they
Mm,
spend a tremendous amount of time trying to educate their committees and whatnot. And no other students in the university have this problem except for ours. So the intent of this book works and is located within the Aboriginal context. It is research using story, it's research using symbols, it's art-based inquiry. And I focused it in that area because we think very differently. We're very creative minded. We see things symbolically. We look at our powwow outfits and whatnot. All of that comes from dream. It comes from deep inside of us. We believe in honesty and truth and connecting that. It's a part of who we are as Indigenous people. We are very honest and we try to ensure that the work that we do uh, uh, probably magnifies the honesty.
mhm,
And so, what I wanted to do was, I wanted to create a research methodology that would be completely aligned with protocol. And so, the book is called Synaxin, which is picture writing, which is what we did, especially as Blackfoot people. My grandfather was a winter count holder. And winter counts are, yes, that's what we do. We symbolically reflect who we are.
mhm,
And our winter counts that we have here in Blackfoot country started to be written in the early 1700s due to the waves of disease that were coming through the trade routes. And we were afraid of losing our histories. But that's how we documented our history, was through stories that were told. Even on our teepees and whatnot, there were a lot of the war teepees. Of course, we can't make those anymore because the warriors have passed on and only they can tell their stories. But I
mm.
wanted to do research that would respect our elders and the people that would be involved in the project and do ceremony ahead of time. I know that story is a significant part of our way of correcting things. It's
Mm.
just like if you go to an elder, right?
Yep.
They won't choose a side, you're wrong or this person's wrong. They will instead give you the answer in a story and you have to figure it out. So I thought, well, why can't I reverse that? And
Yep.
so what I did was I painted the walls of my hallway. I went down to the train station and I got little trees and little people, and I created a little village, a fictional village. And in that village, I needed to have a problem that was uh, known all across Canada. And so we know housing has been a constant. from one end to the other, and everybody knows that. I needed something that was not going to be difficult to depict within the storyboard. So I researched the whole issue of housing here in Canada, and one of the underlying factors that contributes to our homelessness here across Canada is the policies of Canada Mortgage and Housing,
Mm.
who are responsible for all of the subsidized housing units in every part of Canada. I experienced the problem when I was out in New Brunswick. I was living in subsidized housing when I was doing my BA,
Mm.
and I had to have a major surgery. And my mom came to take care of my kids for when I got out of the hospital. I got notified within 2 days that I was going to be evicted if she wasn't out of the house.
Ugh.
So there's usually just a little window of a couple of days or so. That's the only flexibility there is within that. So I knew that that was tangible, and it's still tangible even today as we're talking.
Yep.
This is a policy that's forced. So that's what the storyboard talks about.
Yep. Wow.
So I created a little village, and the village is called a Kiss Kiss, which is Siksika spelled backwards. Okay. And so I have the board, which is boards are nonprofit boards are pretty well where all our Aboriginal people work. It's on and off reserve. Boards are the structure that pretty well informs and facilitates pretty well all the activities in the Indigenous world. So I have this board. I created a real problem within a fictional storyboard environment. And then it was to find the elders, right? I was doing my PhD in Trent in Peterborough, Ontario, but I wanted my research to be relevant to Alberta. And I could have easily picked an elder or just kind of put a couple posters out, but I decided I would be very true to the research process. And what I did was I called all 22 friendship centers in the province and all 42 nations. And I sent them out a little summary of the project. Yep. And asked for 5 names of elders that would be involved. Well, that was where I encountered what is the collective thinking. What happened was in every single location, I had to call and call and call. You can imagine, because this is a request coming from out of the blue in these reserves. And the first thing that they would tell me, not one single band or friendship center just gave me a list of 5 people. Every single one of the locations that, oh, well, we're going to have to go talk to. Yeah. We're going to have to go to the elders lodge, or there's an elders meeting, or there's something had to be approached, and the collective had to make the decision about who would be in this project. Well, I can tell you right now, this was the first shocking piece for me. Of course, you have to put a research schedule together, and my research time for this was 6 weeks.
Oh, no.
I figured, all I have to do is get it all out there, get all the names, and then call them back in the week, maybe 2 weeks, something like that, or more, whatever. And I would have and I was using repetitional theory.
Yep.
And that is the names that had the most references would be the ones that get to be part of the project. Well, 2 months later,
yep,
I have this massive list of names that are coming up. And guess what? None of the elders that are all at the podiums constantly, their names didn't come up.
There you go.
Instead, I ended up with this incredible list, hundreds of names that were beautiful names. My goodness, I couldn't believe it. But the list kept growing and growing and growing. I thought I went down a dead end, and it was just like, holy smokes, where is all this stuff coming from?
Sure.
I realized, like, towards the 3rd month,
Yeah.
I finally started to get just a teeny bit of repetition. And I asked my supervisor, we had to stop it there, but we could have gone on. And I'm pretty sure you could do this in every single province in Canada.
Yeah.
And you'd find out that there's a thick, thick layer in each one of our provinces of culture. But
Mm.
these are the quiet little elders that don't brag about themselves, that everybody just talks about and just knows and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Yep.
my sense is that the first lesson that I learned is that our culture is not dying.
No
It's
kidding.
alive and well. And we have a thick, thick layer of the culture in every single province, and there's access to it. So then I end up with the names and the repetition with 5 people. It wasn't a lot of repetition, just 3, 4, 5 references. But one of the references wasn't even in Alberta. He was up in Hay River.
Mhm.
And I asked because we had to expand the scope of the research and whatnot. So we decided to go with that elder. And then one of the 5 ended up on being away during most of the research, so declined. So I ended up with 4. Wouldn't you be surprised? Once I knew who the elders were, then I went and I had a pipe ceremony.
Yeah.
One of the elders, because I finally knew who would be involved. We
Sure.
did a pipe ceremony to bless the research. And I just asked so that my ears would be very open and I could understand what they were saying about the research project. I completed the storyboard by that time, and I actually made a little book with the story in it, with
Wow.
the painted little images and the people and all of that. All of that is in the book, including the storyboard and whatnot.
Wow.
So the research provided a story of the housing issue that I told you about,
Yeah.
but it stops. The story ends where the board is in conflict after the first AGM because they start a new board that's going to provide housing for us Aboriginal people that's going to be better, that's going to be culturally aligned with, as soon as they get set up and they get congratulations from the mayor, along comes CMHC insisting that their policies are followed. So the board is split in half. One half is saying, well, we're not a cultural organization. It's more important that we provide housing for people. They need the houses and blah, blah, blah. That's one side. And we don't want to lose our funding. The other side of the board said, we developed this organization because we wanted it to be culturally compatible with our values. Our values are all about relationships and the importance of our family and our home and caring and respect and all of that. And these policies violate every single one of those.
Hmm.
So we had to look and see how they would fix that. I had no idea at that point in time. After I had delivered all of the books and explained it all to them and left it with them, I had no idea. I didn't know maybe our cultures had been so damaged, that they couldn't see beyond. I didn't know what the answers would be. So eventually time passed, and what I found out again is it wasn't the elders that corrected the problem. Again, they called the collective together, and they called people from their community, and they problem solved as a collective about the storyboard and how to correct it.
Mm.
I was very deeply impressed, actually, going up. I started up at Hay River in the Northwest Territories and then went to Cold Lake. That was the second woman that was the only woman that was involved was in Cold Lake. And then we had a Stony
Yeah.
uh, elder, and then we also had a Kainai elder.
Mhm.
Now they all had different frameworks that they used that was structured around their cultures,
Yeah.
but they all had a synonymous kind of mandate, and that was to provide education about the culture. That was absolutely imperative. The Daniel Sonivar and the Blackfoot ones were the ones that went right out of the norm
Mm.
and created their own housing organizations that would not be influenced whatsoever by Western thinking.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was remarkable, actually. You could kind of see these themes that were present in all of them,
Yeah.
but they were constructed around land-based control, control of the housing through cultural applications. Um, the CMHC housing, nonprofit housing model is designed on dependency
Mm.
and low income, and it maintains that. It requires that you stay in that level forever in order to stay in their housing. The models that came out of this process were more designed towards independency.
Mm.
And so what they required was, number one, you have to take all the lessons, and Sonifar up in Hay River said, and I want to be the first one that teaches that. I want to do and so were some of the other elders. They were very, very excited about the possibility of bringing families in and then teaching them all about the way that we teach our children. You
Yeah.
never ever hurt them. You respect them because they're the closest to the creator and they're still influenced by that. You
Yeah.
never, and you also respect one another and how you respect your other family members, your wives, your partners. But there was also an extension to that respect, and that was to respect the house.
Mm.
They would be required to learn how to clean out the gutters, fix the furnace, do any house repairs. And then the other part was to, whether it was time that they would get benefit from, they would have to put a little money aside in a pot. And once it got to a certain level, whether it was volunteer time or the actual, money from their work, that would be matched. And then they would go into their own house and be able to take care of their own house. And then
Mm.
the next family would come in for the learning.
Nice. I love that teaching. I love it.
Yes, I was, it was so wonderful to actually see that. But the whole exercise was to see whether or not these protocols could reach and provide that platform where
Hmm.
our elders could actually use their thinking to solve some of these problems, contemporary problems, when we approach them the right way.
Wow.
And so the protocols that are in the book have not been written about before.
Wow.
There are things like cultural credentials, knowing what they are and how they're supposed to be displayed. I know in some of my work places, they didn't even know what I was talking about. So I realized that our youth who are trying so hard to make it through these systems don't have anything to validate. They know how we live and what we do, but there just isn't enough. So the purpose of this book is to help our youth get through these systems, to also validate what our rules and regulations are in regards to protocols, to provide another way that we can use story
Yeah.
and storyboard that stays within the parameters of our requirements and the way that we think. I believe that there's a tremendous amount of power there. And what I'm going to be really watching for is to see how our youth pick this up and add to it. They're going to
Yeah.
build onto this, right? And
Absolutely.
it can actually be transformative in nature in regards to giving them more levers to be able to use our systems and
Oh,
to be able to bring change about.
I love it because there is a huge amount of us now in academia trying to write the theses. And even myself, I was trying to, because especially the last book we read, it was about the descendants of the Dene from Fort Chippewa who had experienced the basically relocation and loss of land and culture through the wood buffalo national park system. And, I said this should be mandatory reading for all Albertans. And another person said it should just be mandatory reading for all Canadians because the story of Wood Buffalo National Park is the same as the displacement all across the country and the policies that were developed at those times imposed on all the nations all across the country. And so, for me, in with a small bit of geomatics as my background, this is all I talk about is the land and the land displacement and the racism within the colonial system. Hearing education system, stories from how many of our youth trying to survive it when there's so much racism as a part of the actual structure, let alone the theses. I had a good friend who had a non-Indigenous person challenge all of his worldviews because he was nothing more than a man in their eyes. When here he was, two-spirit from his community trying to talk about feminism with that lens, and they really discounted his two-spiritness and his Indigenous worldview of women as part of all of it. So we had to redo it. It's so disappointing
Yeah.
how the barriers are there by these colonial forces. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and I agree with you. First of all, when you said it's powerful, like I was feeling that you just describing it, then you said the words, and I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. And then adding to that bigger picture that our youth can now have more to work with when it comes to creating what they're trying to do within their field of discipline and
Yeah.
and moving forward in a good way. So I'm so excited to read this book for no other reason than I'm on your territory and looking forward to reading your perspective on this particular subject. So it's so funny. I just released my 2026 book club, so this has to be January 2027's.
Oh, that'll be good. The book
Yes.
is in lowercase,
Oh, so
entirely
good.
lowercase. I want to bring equality into the the feel of everything. The book has got symbology at the headings of each of the sections from the winter counts with Indigenous definitions of how those symbols are being used to express and to depict, to start it from our perspective and always from the Indigenous language and whatnot. So I've tried, this is an act of resistance, being lowercase. Also, just in the application to Friesen Press, I stayed with a Canadian publisher, and I'm sure glad of that with all this tariff stuff that's going on now in the States. But I stayed with a Canadian publisher, and I knew they had published Indigenous books, and yet we had it knocked down, yelling, screaming couple of sections because of the colonization methodologies that are built right into even publication and stuff. So they were insisting that I had to use pronouns, and I refused
Good for
because
you.
Aboriginal people don't usually refer to gender in any of our languages. And by using pronouns is more divisive and more, it causes more problems that wouldn't be if people had our thinking and whatnot. So that was another one. I really wanted the book to be perfect because I didn't want to be discredited due to technical issues and stuff like that. So I went to a lot of work too. And I think the people that the ones that I had the most difficulty was the comma police. Oh my God, I thought I'd go crazy with those guys with the punctuation and stuff like that. Holy. Eventually, I got to the point, you can put the commas wherever you like.
Okay, but Linda, like, let's have that discussion. Decolonizing language has been a real issue for me too. Kind of back to what you said about being perfect and not wanting to be discredited. I worked really hard on my grammar and punctuation and Oxford comma for a long, long time until it was pointed out that's colonized thinking. And I'm like, oh my God, is it ever? What am I doing here? And really trying to give myself permission now to not use the commas if I don't have to. But my
Yeah,
daughter who texts with me says, Mom, you're failing F because look at all these commas and periods and punctuation.
I know, I know. Anyway, it was truly an experience, but I think the most important part is putting out into the world the protocols that ensure that our elders and the people that are involved in our research are respectfully interacting in spaces and in storied space that give them the permission to that activates the way that they think, and they don't have to be put in a box or anything. So it opens up this, and my thesis coordinator was very, very offended whenever I use the term a neutral environment. He just he said nothing can be neutral. And it was like, well, it's to me, I believe it's third space. Okay. People talk about two-eyed seeing and stuff like that. I think it's the third space that's being developed where we bring our protocols in so that respect can be held there. We can use story in these ways for research as a platform that is not going to embarrass anybody, and
Sure.
elders can work within that framework, knowing that they're not actually talking about any person individually or government or any entity. So they can monkey around with it, and they did. I can tell you that. There's all of their thoughts and stories are there.
Hmm.
The other part of the book, uh, once I got through the story, making the story, getting it out there, finding out who the elders were, I I felt that I couldn't do the analysis unless there was an understanding of what Indigenous knowledge is. And as I reviewed all the research again, looked at all the literature, looked at all the stuff that comes out of Native studies, I looked at academia, looked at our elders, our traditional people and stuff, I realized that the problem that we have as Indigenous people, and as especially with the TRC and interests such as that are kind of spilling all over into all parts of society, the notion of what Indigenous knowledge is also becoming very confused. So what I identify and use as my tool for the analysis is I identified the three competing, coexisting Indigenous knowledge paradigms that exist.
Hmm.
And so, and every single community will have them. That is the first one. And I argue in the text which one of the two Indigenous paradigms came first. I honestly believe, according to our stories, that the community paradigm had to exist first. And
Hmm.
that was because in all our stories, usually there's um, close to death scenarios or extreme scenarios, and then a bundle is brought to the people or an
Mm,
answer is brought to the people. So the community had to be there first, right?
sure. Yeah.
So the parameters of the community paradigm are quite literally, they're external. It's you can be part of a nation because of the also the imposition of the Indian Act on community. A lot of a lot of the present day existence is defined by the Indian Act. Who can be an Indian?
Yeah.
What band you're on? You know, your treaty number, your all that stuff. Chief and council, how many council members you can have, all of that stuff is defined by that. There is knowledge that's in there that's hereditary, that comes from long lines, and that's genealogy.
Mm,
Might be the stories of the trails, might be the stories of trading, might be the stories of, you know, really characters from the nation, you know, or leadership and stuff like that. That's all community knowledge,
mm,
very specific to the community. And they believe they owned it, they own it, and they are aggressively owning it. Let me tell you, in many
good.
cases, I have run into it often. Okay, so community knowledge, and that is a set framework. Then there's traditional knowledge.
Mhm.
That's the you have to go after that knowledge to learn how to hold the ceremonies, to be a ceremonialist, that kind of knowledge, that those other long strands of knowledge, and you have to know who the knowledge holders are. That's where I define the cultural credentials. You have to have the cultural, you have to know where, who had that knowledge before, who taught it to you, where it came from, who had it before that, and how it's hooked. I mean, all of the ceremonies that we have here in Blackfoot country, anybody that holds that can tell you exactly even when the first bundle where it came from and what area and whatnot. So you need to know those strands, right?
Yep.
Well, that community knowledge is totally different than, or that's IK or Indigenous knowledge, that's traditional.
Yep.
It's totally different than community knowledge. A community knowledge person can't claim to be a ceremonialist.
No. No.
They are, unless they learned that, right? Because you
Yep.
can be a community person and a ceremonialist. But the ceremonial part of the knowledge is bound by the rules, where you got it from, et cetera, et cetera. And I identify all of those parameters as well. But then there's the third paradigm. Now that has been forming just since the 1960s, 70s, and that's in academia. And they write about us guys. They write about every single community that exists, and they think they know it, right?
Yeah.
And so,
I'll just share with you real quick. My
yeah,
community was considered extinct by some profs in Iowa in the 1960s. And obviously, if you were to go up to Yellowknife, you see brown faces everywhere. Like how ridiculous some of these stories are. And even a prof locally here who has passed
yeah.
went up to my community and wrote a book. And I knew the moment I started reading this book, it was wrong. So I get very defensive when non-Indigenous people who don't have our worldview just start writing about us.
Oh, I mean, it's just like the Bering Strait nonsense that still
Ugh.
floats around and stuff like that. I mean, when are they going to give it up, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
I have the three paradigms, right? So
Okay.
then what I do is I do an analysis of the discourse from the elders and their rationale for what the teachings are and why and how they put it together. And I analyze the outcomes of their circle based on the source. Because one of the things as traditional people, we should always be able to say where the source of our knowledge is.
Mm,
And so by creating the three paradigms, I could use those as lenses to see which one was drawn from, where did the knowledge come from.
There you go.
Um, in two of the four models, there was total a mix of community and traditional. Another was just community, and the other one was very much ceremonial.
Yep.
None of them drew from the academic paradigm.
Not surprised. Not surprised. Our
Yeah.
I
So it
go please go ahead.
yeah, so it questions, why are we producing in this field, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll open up a lot of questions.
Well, good. That's the point of it. So that's the whole point. And I'm so glad that you would be willing to talk about your book here on the podcast in the hopes that other people will grab it. And I wanted to ask you, do you go directly to the publisher? Do you go to your website? How do people access that?
I went through Friesen Press and it is now available at 50,000 locations around the world.
Amazing.
So you can get it from online through Barnes and Noble, through any bookstore pretty well. But I just learned this morning that Marigold, some organization called Marigold, actually is the one that provides libraries with the books and stuff. So I have learned a lot going through this process. So I'm now just putting things together to work on book number 2, and that
Oh,
will be the 10 Old Ladies.
well, that sounds amazing. I can't wait for this one to come out. What is that going to be about?
Well, I was working with Margaret Badboy to transfer the shield design to for Awaton.
Yeah.
And I stayed with her until she passed. And I was so sad that I wrote a proposal for the 10 Old Ladies. And I sought out 9 more other women. I treated them all the same, and I only asked them one question, and that was, what advice would they give women today to live a good life and raise their children?
Yeah.
And so there'll be no numbers in the book. There'll be special designs for each woman, and there'll be 10 sections. I won't touch any of their transcriptions. I'll just kind of clean them up, just have a beginning and an end.
Wow.
And yeah, and that will be our advice from very old women. And most of the ladies were passing when I was interviewing them. And I can remember Elsie Jimmy John. She was little tiny lady. She was the littlest lady I ever met in my life. She even had a little ladder to get up onto the couch. Honest to God. She was so tiny anyway. Her family had called. They found out about the book and she wanted to be involved in it. She was in the hospital on her last days, and I was there, and her families were kind of waving to me that she wanted to say something to me. And so I had to lean really low, to close to her mouth with my ear, because her voice was very faint. And
Sure.
she told me, none of the words that she's told me are hers. They're all the words of all her ancestors.
Mm,
And that's my motivation, because I think these words need to be out there to the rest of the people so that they can learn
yeah.
from them too. Incredible ladies, just awesome, awesome women. And their voices need to be present.
Yes. 100%. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Linda. I love catching up with you and hearing all about the projects you're working on. And I can't wait for you to come back to talk more about all the other amazing
The
things you continue
avatar.
to do. The Avatar, that will be
Oh,
some.
I should come and put the headset on you.
Oh, I can't wait. Right on. Okay. Well, thank you, Linda. Is there anything else you wanted to say that maybe I forgot to ask?
No,
Wonderful.
life's wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. I so appreciate you coming on and talking about it. And I'll put a link in the show notes to your website so that people can go buy it from you directly, and we'll go from there.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay.
Honored. Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Linda Manyguns is one of my favorite people in the entire world, and I'm sure you understand why now, especially after hearing her talk about this wonderful project that she is doing. So I hope that a lot of folks will, buy her book, or maybe talk to your library about bringing in her book, so that way we can, get that information out there and have lots of youth, Indigenous youth, having access to it. Anyway. Masicho, to my ancestors, to my granny, to my mom, of what strength looks like through your examples. I want to thank my dad for teaching me to be strong and blunt, my stepmom for showing me a proud culture through her Austrian family and roots, and teaching me to be a proud Calgarian. It is through her I'm a second generation Calgarian. Um, Thank you to my husband. I he is going through so much, and he's been doing hard work of getting ADHD meds and working hard on trying to reintegrate back into society after all of the trauma that we've been put through. So he isn't just my husband. He's been the producer, the editor, the my childhood friend, the father of our child, and my support down this road of racism, ableism, and sexism to our child. We are so proud of you. She is days away from graduating from her first semester at SAIT and becoming a first year apprentice for electrical. And we are just so honored that you chose us and that we get to learn from you daily. And just to emphasize what Linda said, she is just the most, she teaches us every single day about kindness and generosity. It is just in her. It's like she's an old spirit helping her, damaged family some days. And that's not fair. But what she does is she teaches by example so that we learn to be better people. And I'm honored she gives me that daily accountability. And I hope that my entire family will be proud of these things we discuss down the road. I honor the Blackfoot, having Dr. Linda Manyguns, the elders, the members. All of you have been so kind to me on my understanding of who I am, where I come from, and being on your land. Elder Red Crane taught me how to pronounce my spirit name. Satu Dene Elder Leonard Kenny taught me how to pronounce my spirit name. My humblest apologies to all the language keepers as I try to learn how to, reclaim the language I'm supposed to, but also honor the Blackfoot on their land as I try to learn some of theirs. My Patreon account is Native Calgarian, where you can pledge and support. Thank you, previous donors, for showing your support. If you value listening or watching and can afford to give, thank you. For those who cannot afford to give, I'd love to hear from you at nativeyyc@gmail.com, where you can send in your comments or questions. I have a YouTube channel that you can go and subscribe. Go to nativecalgarian.com for the latest podcasts and pin posts on social media. And just lastly, I just want to wish everybody out there, from my house to your house, from my heart to yours, the best holidays. Be safe. Mask. I'm grateful for all of you that you do out there in this world for our Indigenous youth. And just keep going and know that 2026 is coming up and we'll do it all over again. And always end with that side eye to those Calgary rabbits. You're lucky I'm not tradish, or you'd be in my dish. Thank you, folks, for listening.